This just in, Jussie Smollett did not Epstein himself. Very important to know.
I am not I am innocent, and I am not If I did this, then it means that I stuck my fist in the fears of Black Americans in this country for over 400 years, and the fears of the LGBT community. Your Honor, I respect you, and I respect your
Signed
but I did not.
the Emancipation Proclamation.
Anything happens to me, but I
As a red beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves.
This is a story that originated about a lack of privilege for a gay, Black, Jewish person beaten in the streets of Chicago, in the heart of MAGA country.
Please stop doing it, please! This is MAGA country now,
For his crime of being every single protected minority he could possibly think of.
Jussie Smollett is gay and he is Black, not just French.
When I say what you didn't want to happen is you never wanted this case solved. You thought that somehow you'd be able to skate by and nobody would ever know what really happened here. And you're going to walk away from this, and it didn't go down like that at all, of course.
I said, I just want them to find them. And she said, sweetie, they're not going to find them. And that just made me so angry because, so I'm just going to be left here with this?
It turns out that you're not a victim of a hate crime. You're not a victim of a racial hate crime. You're not a victim of a homophobic hate crime. You're just a charlatan pretending to be a victim of a hate crime. Court is adjourned.
Shoot program, 23-hour lockdown. I'm the man up in this piece. You'll never see you think you with.
He's in jail for 5 months. That is unacceptable. For being attacked.
And my tiny little nipples went to France.
You do such a disservice when you lie about things like this.
What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from The Quartering, and wow, what a wild day yesterday ended up being. After waiting around all day with basically this sense of doom and gloom that Jussie Smollett would not see any time inside of a jail cell, we were treated to a legendary 40-minute dressing down of Jussie Smollett by the Chicago judge, and it had my emotions on an absolute roller coaster. At times I was convinced he was just yelling at him before he would let him off scot-free. At other times I thought, wait a minute, he's actually being very specific here in his thought process because he knows he's going to lock him up. He ends up delivering the sentence as like a footnote at the end. He talks about 30 months probation, paying restitution, and then he's like, and oh, by the way, the first 150 days of your sentence, you'll be in Cook County Jail. And I honestly was genuinely shocked. I think Jussie Smollett was genuinely shocked. I think he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to try and avoid spending any time in jail, only to fail at that. I think that the judge made veiled references to his political influence, and that leading to him getting off in the first place. References to Kim Fox, references to maybe his ties with the Obamas. All this, I think, factored in to his sentencing of Jussie Smollett. On top of that, you had him show up late for his own sentencing, which probably would have irritated the judge, and so much more. Let's get into all the hilarity of the after effects here, just as soon as I show the right actual browser on the screen, because I'm totally a professional. Here we go. First article, Jussie Smollett explodes in courtroom. I don't have feelings of self-harm. I did not do this. Even after he was convicted, he maintained his innocence, which is, I mean, I guess jail is full of innocent people. but also his family trotted out and maintained, doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on his innocence. Now, to me, it was hilarious as an outsider when we had all of this, undeniable evidence. But that said, like, look, I don't have anything. Nothing Jussie Smollett. I didn't watch Empire. I don't think that show was for me. He's just another Hollywood NPC drone. Seems like he's donated a lot of money to worthy causes, and that's a good thing. I believe he made a horrible miscalculation, a horrible mistake. I don't think that makes him irredeemable. I think he's paying the appropriate price for that. I didn't want to see him serve 0 time because the implications, because of just how sinister this was, and how the judge even mentioned, "Hey, you sat up here on in my court and lied to me nonstop, perjured yourself nonstop, and that's not okay. There has to be a penalty for that. You can't just walk away with this rich person privilege, which is essentially what Jussie had." And I think the judge even made a slight reference to that, possibly when he was talking about, bro, you've basically tied up our courts forever over this. You've showed 0 contrition. You're backlogging justice. So now you're going to pay. You doubled down on this. And instead of probably taking some sort of plea, he didn't do it. And he ignored his opportunity, by the way, at every point, to show any contrition whatsoever. And I honestly believe if he had at any point in this trial come out at the end, even at the very end, and said, "All right, you know what? Forget it. I did it. It was this horrible mistake. I'm so very sorry." And acknowledged what he did. I think it could have spared him some jail time. I really do. But today, now he's going to have to undergo a mental health assessment. I think this is all part of his plan, by the way. All part of his plan. Like when Jussie said in court, "If something happens to me, that's on you, judge." He was essentially, threatening the judge, saying like, "Hey, if something happens to me, man, in jail, that's going to be on you." Actually, no, Jussie, that is 100% on you. I've recently gotten some more insight onto why he may have been talking about, I don't have any thoughts of hurting myself. Somebody mentioned to me, a viewer, of 2 other cases of black folks who went into incarceration and passed away under suspicious circumstances. I haven't yet had the time to research that, but that may have been what he was referencing. I actually thought he was referencing the creepazoid guy, Jeffrey, but maybe he wasn't. He was perhaps referencing a different case. I think that I thought this yesterday after his meltdown in court. He's probably aiming to make sure he spends all 150 days in protective custody. He does not want to be out in Gen Pop, but I'm not super familiar with how jails work. I'm more familiar with prisons. I watched a lot of documentaries on prisons, so I'm a little more familiar with the hierarchy there. But there's a lot of people who are talking about, "Oh my God, it wasn't prison." And some people disagree with me. Like, yes, I understand the magnitude of what he did and the several inflammatory factors but it's still like the lowest grade felony that you can commit. Yes, it's still a felony and he is spending time in jail for that. But the idea that Cook County Jail is some sort of cakewalk just isn't the case. Cook County Jail is going to be no picnic for Jussie Smollett at all. In fact, there are a lot of people who have spent time in the system that have told me they'd much rather spend time in prison than in jail, because jail is just way less predictable, way more volatile. In a lot of these, you have basically dormitories where you have everybody housed up next to each other. And the stories I've heard can be rough. This is not like some suburban, drunk tank jail. Getting put in my county jail where I live would probably not be that big of a deal. versus Cook County, where you have legitimate, you have some legitimate concerns. Per jail protocol, he will also be tested for the coof upon intake and will be offered the poke if he has not previously gotten it. And he's now undergoing a psych evaluation. And just as expected, we'll get to that in a second. Here we go. Actually, I'll jump to that now. He is beginning his sentence in jail, but it's going to be in protective custody. So now the jail system has to spend even more money protecting this guy. Jussie Smollett time in Cook County will be spent in protective custody, away from the jail's general population. You know what's weird to me is, like, I understand sort of why this happens, okay? He's a high-value target in there for various people, and, they do have to bear some responsibility for his safety. But also it's like, okay, so this guy's not really doing time like everyone else. Now, to him, really anybody, I mean, like, I've had it pretty cush life. I understand this. The idea of having to go 6 months internet free, and having garbage food every day, although I kind of eat like garbage anyway, it's going to be rough on him. It's going to be no picnic. But the fact that he's basically in PC right away, that's a little dicey. The order granting protective custody was entered shortly after he was sentenced for 150 days for lying to police. He must also pay the $120,000. Jussie's sentence is eligible for day-to-day credit, meaning he could spend 75 days behind bars before he's released. It's interesting. I still think him opting not to make a statement to the court before the sentence was announced, but once he'd learned that he'd spend the next few months in jail, he decided to have an outburst. I think that did not go over well. That didn't look well. It didn't look good for him. And then now you see people coming out of the woodwork, people who had probably previously supported him, like that clown Lori Lightfoot. Chicago Mayor Lori Lightfoot blasts Jussie Smollett after sentencing, welcomes payback. The criminal conviction of Jussie by a jury of his peers in today's sentence should send a clear message to everyone in the city of Chicago that false claims and allegations should not be tolerated, will not be tolerated. Lightfoot said in a statement after Smollett was sentenced to 150 days in jail. The malicious and wholly fabricated claim by Mr. Smollett resulted in over 1,500 hours of police work that cost the city over $130 in just overtime alone. She went on, the city feels vindicated by today's ruling. He is being held accountable, and that's what we will appropriately receive restitution for his actions. I'm actually shocked that Lori Lightfoot spoke out in this manner. I'm genuinely shocked. I think she must have taken the pulse of the black community and realized that they also didn't believe him. So she felt like it was safe to speak frankly about it. And look, I'm not gonna sit here and act like there aren't innocent people behind bars. I don't think it's smart to make broad generalizations, especially about this kind of stuff. But I think in this particular case, it's very clear that he was lying from Jump Street. And, regardless of skin color, I think that you have to treat him the same way. If Jussie benefited from or was hurt by anything outside of the case, I think it was the statements of his family. He brought his older brother up to speak at his trial, and his brother Jojo sounded like a clown, going up there and basically tutting down his nose at the judge and coming right up to the line of basically insinuating that if he gave him jail time that he was a racist. They brought up Ukraine for some whatever reason. There's just innumerable head scratchers. His mom, I think, did good. The other old lady that they brought up did good. But the family standing out there and saying, I get it. What are they supposed to do? Maybe if it were my son, I don't know if I saw his father anywhere around, or if his father's even still around. I don't know, on this planet. But as a father, I think, you could probably make the statement look, everyone makes mistakes, we'll be here for him if he needs us, and blah, 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 blah. But instead, they just stood there defiantly and basically said he was only convicted because he was black and all this other absurd stuff. I don't think that does any good either, because look, if we can't acknowledge, if you want me to acknowledge that there are, in some cases, unfair treatments of people based on the color of their skin, then you must also acknowledge when somebody is just guilty. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't have, you can't expect buy-in for people who are normies like me, maybe, to understand the plight or what it's like in the black community with imprisonment, but then also have somebody who's clearly guilty and they expect me to believe that he's only guilty because he's black. Because then what happens is, you just lose all your credibility. I think that was a mistake, an optics mistake, but I understand why they did it, because of course they're family and they don't really have any choice. I get it. I don't know how long he'll serve. I'm guessing it'll probably be a few weeks if I had to guess. If he serves the full 75 days, I would be utterly shocked. But I'll be curious to see what you think in the comment section down below. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.